Union Raid Hard Mode. It's today. You have no time. So watch this video and hopefully get some tips and tricks and make it through. I didn't make this. This is by I Can't Read Chinese, who is a moderator on Blau Link and makes excellent guides. We reference their guides every single time. They don't just make guides for Union Raids, solo raids. They also do it for characters. So check them out. I'm just simply reading through it. Anyways, the Union Raid on August 8th is Latias, Stout, Material H, Rebuild Spook, Chatterbox. As always, bosses 3 and 5 are the Tyrants, so they have super high HP. And bosses 1 and 3 both require Rappy, so if you take a fight, don't do both, otherwise you're going to be inefficient and ineffective. Rappy is key in both fights. And when fighting Chatterbox boss 5, make sure you don't hit 10 stacks of debuff. The debuffs are done from any hits you take. It's the red number next to your Nikke. Don't let it hit 10 or you die immediately. Okay, with that out of the way, let's start with the first boss, Latias. This one is a bit goofy because there's no Asuka in here, and it's not like he's against running crossovers because he has Ray. But yeah, Latias does have a core. That's why I'm iffed up by that, but the teams are all legit. Siren, Grave, Rappy Red Hood, Mahara, Modernia. Very strong red team. That's the suggested team for most people. Team 2, Leader, Grave, Rappy Red Hood, Alice, Mahara. I actually don't recommend this team. I would rather go Asuka over this team because Alice is going to get debuffed. But yeah, Alice is still really good and still should outperform most red fire DPSs because she's fully built for most people. So, but no, if you have Asuka build or another fire DPS like Ray, the third team, I'd take that. And then finally, it's Siren, Grave, Rappy Red Hood, Grave, Mahara. I agree with that. Siren and Leader interchangeable. Grave and Crown interchangeable. Agreed. Anyways, real quick, mechanics. Has a core, AoE attack reduces normal attack explosion rates by 40%. Single target attack reduces charge speed by 200%. See image below. So if you run Alice, you can be debuffed. Even though charge speed is reduced, it only affects single target attacks with a 20% chance of hitting Alice. Right, it's a 1 in 5 chance, it's not guaranteed. And the frequency and duration is low, so Alice is still viable. If Alice gets hit, simply restart the run. You could do that, or just don't run Alice. But as I said earlier, most people have Alice fully built, and she's an excellent fire DPS, and even with the debuff, it's not in the world, it should still out DPS most fire damage Nikkes. But yeah, as shown here. Yeah, it's like 10 seconds, but it's still a damage loss, and you could restart. But again, I'm surprised there's no Asukas here. Highly recommend Asuka, Rappy Red Hood, Mahara, or Asuka, Rappy Red Hood, Modernia. That's what I really like. And I think you should go Grave because she'll do extra damage, and Grave's damage is not negligible. You don't really need healing in this fight. If you really have to, just cover. Anyways, continue on. Stout is next. Weakness is electric, and so we go with the standard electric team, which is Cinderella, which is the only choice. You don't really have another choice when it comes to this team. So yeah, excellent CDR, HP scaling for Cinderella, who's your primary damage dealer. Anise for electric shredding, and the damage buffing for electric DPS is therefore. Mari for the burst generation, and of course she'll do more damage thanks to the synergy with Anise. And then Maiden as your final. And Maiden's really nice too because she's really good at burst generation and extra damage when you finally do burst with her once she hits her max stacks. So key details. Stout has a core, generates a barrier, break it with enough damage. Single target paralysis shots can be dodged by taking cover. If you don't have Mari, switch with Blanc, and Blanc's shield could save you a bit of time as well. But you don't really need a healing, so I don't know why you would need this. Rouge with the HP scaling up should be enough for survivability. So yeah, very standard fight. Just pilot Mari, keep shooting, make sure burst is up at all times, and then break through shield and keep hitting it. Yeah, simple fight. Stout's one of the easier bosses. Material H is next. Iron Weakness. The recommended team is Sign Grave, Rappy Red Hood, and Helm Aquamarine. I don't recommend anyone build her at this point, but yeah, you could. So here's what I would recommend. Rappy Red Hood, yes. Red Hood, yes. But you should just go Raven. Raven without burst is still a lot of damage. Now, with that said, if you have a really good Eve, a really good Raven, you can interswap it with Red Hood, and that works perfectly as well. You can also do Red Hood every other burst. So put Siren at 5, and then run another Iron DPS like Raven or Eve. And in other words, you would just use Red Hood as a burst 1 instead. With that said though, a battle like this where the parts show up and you want to pierce it, and then there's a lot of mobs that like scatter in front of Material H. Maybe you just want to use Red Hood anyways, but a Red Hood as burst 1 is another option to get more damage if you have a really good Eve, a really good Raven, and you want to get them in the battle instead. But yeah. Another team is Leader. Very similar. Red Hood replaced with Raven. But yeah, Red Hood interchangeable with Eve and Raven. But honestly, I would say you could just run all three of them together instead of running Helm Aquamarine. And Helm Aquamarine replaceable with Helm herself for more burst generation, damage, and healing. Makes sense. Siren replaceable with Leader as always. Probably should just use Leader though, because Iron Weakness and more ammo does help. It does help Rappy, but it's not the biggest deal. Anyways, has a core. Both boss 1 and 3 require Rappy, so avoid fighting both of them together. Recommend to bring Red Hood. Her piercing damage can double hit the core. Yeah, that's the thing. So yeah, well, the core isn't... Oh, that's right. It's the Union Raider version, so the core actually stays up the entire time. Yeah, okay. Understandable. Frequently summons mobs, so bring Rappy helps you ignore them. So yeah, Rappy and Red Hood are the best two here. Gets rid of the mobs easier. Pierce damage is also really good, so... Wouldn't Eve be better for buffing Rappy and Red Hood replacing Helm? You know what? They're both fine. So here's the thing, Raven's sheer damage is higher than Eve's, but it's not to say Eve isn't a good choice either, so it's up to you. I would test it out, but from my understanding of testings is that you're better off running Raven as your 5th in a situation like that. Rebuild Spook is next. Win weakness. It is Scarlet, Black Shadow, Maid, Mast. Oh god. Asuka, Siren, Anchor. So this makes sense. Distributed damage, and then the 2 top win DPS with Siren. Very strong combo. I would say most Sirens are taken up by the earlier fights though, so yeah, you can replace with Volume, makes sense as well. And then Alice just to buff up SBS if you do not have Asuka. Asuka, even without Ray, is still a ton of damage, and while you do have like more negative parts of it because Ray's not there to alleviate it, it is still just overwhelmingly more damage to run SBS over Ray. But yeah, if you don't have Asuka, the standard Alice SBS team makes perfect sense. If Siren is used, you can use Leader and Volume. If Maids are used, you can go with the standard of, wow, Crown plus Mask. That's actually even more damage. But I would say, you know what? Yeah, you probably can't afford that. I would say usually I don't prefer using that combination because you want to save the Maids to be used together. But because there's only 3 battles, and if you're doing Stout, for example, where you're definitely not going to use one of the Maids, then yeah, you can afford to run a super team like that. Anyways, has a core. Since this is boss 4, it has lower HP than bosses 3 and 5. Try not to bring Crown, use Mask plus Anchor instead. Agreed. Crown should be used on the most valuable fights. Stun bullets can be dodged by taking cover, or you can stop them from firing if you destroy the parts. So yeah, just target parts first. Cover if you have to. Try to avoid covering though, because that's a damage loss. Especially if you're going to run MGs like Rappy Red Hood. Wait, you shouldn't run Rappy here. I think it's just an exemplar. Anyways, Chatterbox next. Water weakness. Run Siren, Crown. Oh yeah, Dorals are out now. Dorothy, Helm, and... Oh, that's just a new water team. Alright, so yeah, that's just a new standard water team when it comes to overwhelming water DPS. Now, you can run a shotgun variant of this, but I don't recommend it because in Union Raid, you only have to run 3 battles, so you can afford to be run much stronger units. So yeah, Dorothy is your strongest water DPS entire game now. And while you could run other options like, oh, I mean, they're showing it, Quincy, for example, you should probably just run Helm. Helm healing, damage, Helm burst generation just works way better. And then, of course, as your 5th, you should obviously run E-Leg, mostly because what makes E-Leg so useful is that she's a 5th member, a filler. She doesn't need a burst. In fact, most people don't even level up her burst. Most people just leave it at 4 because skill 1 and skill 2 are all you really need. Skill 2, when using burst skill, affects self attack up by 34.54%, and when a ghost is captured while at maximum ghost cap, affects all enemies, 95% of final attack as damage. And then, more importantly, skill 1, superior elemental damage, code attack damage up by 30.23% continuously, and it activates when there are 4 ghosts. So you want as many water DPS as you can when running E-Leg. So yeah, that's the idea. She does decent damage herself, and then you run water DPS. It's just a much better combination. If you don't have Dorothy, then you run Ludmilla, which is the more standard old school. Well, it was the strong water pairing, but yeah, no need for that anymore. And if you have the maids available and use Crown elsewhere, then you can use the maids instead. Yes, you could use Brady and Quincy with maids, and that makes a lot of sense. That's very highly synergetic together. Anyways, alternations are Leader for Siren and Volume, and then if you don't have E-Leg built, you can go Mass as well. Makes sense. And then Grave for Crown if you have to. But yeah, has a core, boss attacks, missiles, ground slam, apply minus defense debuff 2 stacks per hit. Nikke will immediately die upon reaching 10 debuff stacks. Prioritize restraining the head part, otherwise it'll add 2 stacks of debuff. Yeah, so you should always target head. Pierce damage is also really good here, but there's no good pierce options. But if you have to run Red Hood for some reason, you can actually hit all 3 parts at once. But yeah, this is an easy fight as well. Just be sure to cover when you have to. Leader's a good option here for the cover repair. Shielding's really good as well. And yeah, this should be a very easy fight now. Water used to be a weakness for a lot of players, but because of Dorothy coming out and her being a popular character and everyone pulling for her, yeah, there's a lot of strong Dorothys around, so I don't think Chatterbox is a hard battle anymore. But yeah. Anyways, missiles can be dodged by taking cover. Failing to do so adds 2 stacks of debuff. And that's the guide. Give me your thoughts, guys. As always, very excellently done. Nothing complicated. I think it's one of the easier Union raids. If you follow the guides and keep in mind the mechanics, I think you'll do great. But yeah, that's that.